Hello, everyone, and welcome back to Delve Deeper 2018. As you can tell, I'm outside today, which is really nice, and it's 59-degree weather. The winter, brought some 30 and 40-degree temperatures, and it was bone chilly. So it's really, really nice to be outside today. It's not super sunny. We had some sun a little bit earlier, but it's just really nice. So I just thought, hey, I'd take advantage of it and bring you today's message from outdoors. So, anyway, thank you for being here and for joining me for part two of my message, Don't Settle for Less Than God's Best. For those of you who were here a few weeks ago when I shared a message out of a devotional I was doing in Genesis chapter 11, and where Terah took his son Abram and Sarai and his grandson Lot, and was heading over to Canaan from Ur, and they ended up settling in the land of Haran. And so that's where I kind of just stopped right there, like my heart just stopped right there, because I was starting to question how many of us actually settle. How many of us, as we're heading somewhere, we actually end up settling instead of, continuing forward to our destination. We just end up pitching tent. And, for some of us, we don't have a choice. Life situations, arose and put us in a position where we didn't have a choice, but we had to settle where we were at, maybe to take care of family members. Maybe we found a job and ended up just really liking it, and didn't want to move from there for whatever reason. Just life ends up dealing us a deck of cards, and we just find ourselves in places that maybe we weren't planning to. But you know what? There's always a future, and there's always a hope. And so today I want to talk about lifting our eyes up from where we're at. And so what happened is that when Terah passed away in Haran, God said, okay, Abram, I'm going to take you to Canaan. That's originally where they were supposed to go. And God is saying, we're going to go now. So come on, let's go. And then they're heading over there. And in the course of their journey, Lot's herdsmen and Abram's herdsmen, they get into a strife. And so Abram's saying, you know what, this is not good. Let's separate. There's all this land in front of us, and you choose first. And whatever land you don't choose, then I'll settle in. And so that's exactly what happened. So Lot chose what he thought was the better land, what Abram actually thought was the better land also. And so this is where I end up, grabbing a hold of the fact that we need to lift our eyes up from where we're at. Is that after Lot chooses his land, his piece of land where he wants to settle, the Lord comes and he says this to Abram: lift your eyes now and look from the place where you are. Look southward, look northward, look eastward, look westward. For all the land which you see, I give to you and your descendants forever. Okay, so he's saying to Abram, lift your eyes now. So what this tells me is that Abram is kind of bummed. That Abram is kind of like, wow, he thinks that Lot has the better land. So he's maybe kind of looking around and thinking, okay, what can he do with what he has? And so he's a little bit despondent and discouraged. And the Lord just comes alongside of him and says, lift your eyes. Lift your eyes now, okay? All of this is what I'm going to give to you and your descendants. And so right there is a sign of partnership. Okay, it's a sign of partnership. God is saying, lift your eyes. And Abram could have chosen to lift his eyes, which he did. Or he could have chosen to just be despondent and discouraged and just kind of feel hopeless. We're never in a hopeless situation. We have a God of hope. We have a God who has a future for us. We have a God who has a plan for our future, to prosper us, not to harm us. Okay? So we are never hopeless. And so when God says to us, lift our eyes, we have to partner with him. We have to be the ones to lift our eyes. He's not going to come and grab, as we're despondent and looking down, he's not going to come and grab our face and lift our eyes up. We're going to have to choose to do that. Okay. Psalm 121 says, I lift my eyes up to the hills. Where does my help come from? My help comes from the Lord. Okay. I lift my eyes up to the hill. I choose to do that. I choose to not live in a place of discouragement any longer. I choose to not live in a place of despondency. I choose to not live in a place where I'm bummed or a place of hopelessness. I choose to lift my eyes up. I choose to lift my eyes to the hills, because that's where my help comes from. It comes from the Lord. Okay? That's what God said to Elijah. When Elijah was in a cave, he says, what are you doing in here? Elijah was bummed. He was bummed because he felt all alone. He felt there was no one there to come alongside him. And God calls him out of the cave. And he could have chosen to stay in the cave, but he's in partnership with God. So he comes out of the cave, and God says, look, I have these people for you. Besides that, I have 7,000 prophets on reserve. Okay? If we don't come out, we don't allow God to show us what there is for us for our future. And it's the same thing as the Samaritan woman at the well. She lived in a place where, she knew she was married to the guy, and she may have felt like her life was just, a matter of daily routine, and there was nothing left in her life that was filled with hope. And Jesus came and gave her living water. Jesus came and gave her hope. She didn't have to settle for that anymore. She ran out into town and she told everybody about him. Okay, that's the kind of life God has for us. We have to lift our eyes so that we can see what he has for us. Some years ago, my younger brother, was working in a retail shop over in the Big Island. And, he was great at his job. He worked there for some years, married, two daughters and a son. And, one day he said to himself, I don't want to do this for the rest of my life. And so he decided, lifted his eyes up from the counter where he was standing behind every single day working, lifted his eyes up, took the steps out to go and get his college degree, went back to college, got his teaching degree, and has been a high school teacher for many, many years. Now, he could have sat there in that retail shop and say, I'm too old. I'm too old to go back to school. I'm too old to go back to college. I'm just going to say, I know the ropes here already. I know this job inside out. I'm going to stay here for the next 20, 30, 40 years, whatever. He could have done that. And you know what? For those of you who do, praise the Lord, because we need people behind the counter, people that we can come to service us. But this is my point. My point is that if you have potential, God-given potential, I'm going to encourage you to take a hold of it, grab a hold of it, and go for it. Had my brother not done that, who knows what would have happened. But because he's a high school teacher now, he gets to speak into the life of high school kids. My daughter is another one. Next week, Tuesday, she'll be graduating from beauty college. 2 years ago, she was in a place where, she felt like she didn't have a future. She felt like, I'm a mom, I have 4 kids, by the time my kids grow up, there's no future, and she's married. And I said, of course you have a future. What is it that you want to do? And so she looked at a couple of options, and I encouraged her, to go for it. So she went to beauty college, and next week, Tuesday, she graduates. And you know what? It was a tough 2 years mean, you know, those hairstylists, when they do your hair, they make it look so easy. But she had a tough 2 years. But you know what? She stuck it out. And now she's graduating and she's going to be a rocking hairstylist and cosmetologist, I'll tell you. My son is another one, you know. He actually could build houses. He can build a house from the ground up. He can draw house plans. He can play music. He can, you know, he can play his guitar, probably with his guitar behind his neck. But one day he said, I want to be a chef. And he went to culinary school. And now he works as a chef. And he loves cooking. And so, you see what I'm saying? We don't ever have to settle. We have options. We have choices. God has given us eyes to look out into our future and to grab a hold of the things that he has for us. So don't think that you have to stay planted where you're at. God is always moving us. He always wants something different for us. We go through different seasons. He wants different things for us. He's calling us into different areas. He's calling us to relive the passions that we've had so that we can actually use them for his glory and use them to build other people up and use them to share. So I want to highly encourage you, lift your eyes up. Don't settle for less than God's best, because he has an amazing future for you. All right? Love you guys. Have a great weekend. And don't forget to go to worship on Sunday. I'll see you guys next time. Aloha.